Hi, everybody. I'm Gwendolyn Sterk, and I'm here today with our friend Ryan Hemanowski to talk about firearms and estates. Boy, what a complicated issue. So, Ryan, first of all, thanks for coming out and being with us today. We appreciate it.
Happy to, Gwen. Complicated issue and complicated last name. Trust me, I know.
There you go. Sorry about this.
That's okay.
But I got it out there. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about today is, where do we start with gun laws? I mean, obviously, there's so many different details, but what's the operating premise?
Well, all of our gun laws come from one place. It comes from the Second Amendment to the Constitution. And so we're all on the same page here. That states a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That amendment right there is why we have firearms in the United States and why we have the firearms laws, and frankly, why we run into some of the issues we do as attorneys when it comes to firearms in all of its guises.
Sure. And especially when you get somebody calling you up and they're saying, hey, grandpa just died and he had a firearm collection and there's a couple hundred guns here. It looks like they're from World War II, or the Civil War, even collection beyond measure. And we don't even know where to start. What do you tell somebody in that situation?
Somebody in that situation, honestly, one of the first things I ask them is, because we're dealing with Illinois law, I ask them right out of the gate, do you have a firearm owner identification card? That's the one key to all the puzzles, because here in Illinois, you cannot possess firearms without that card. If they don't have one, well, they should not be handling, using, transporting. In my opinion, I tell them they shouldn't even be looking at those guns, because don't run afoul of the law. If they do, first step for me is always simple. Secure the firearms. Make sure that there is no way they're going to fall into the wrong hands. From there, we roll them into the probate and make them part of the estate.
Okay, so who is the person that should have the FOID card? Is it the executor, the administrator? Maybe you're not yet appointed. What do? Grandpa died. There's 3 granddaughters. Everybody else has passed away. Nobody has an FOID card. Nobody even knows because grandpa didn't leave a will. They don't even know where to start. So what do you tell them?
At that point, it's I take it upon myself and I make it my job to do as much investigation as I need to do to find someone who can responsibly, legally deal with those firearms. To be very fair, there are times where I'm the one that's doing that because, like you've said, nobody in that family has a firearm card. So if that's the case, I will step in, make sure all of those firearms are safely cleared, and we will find a way to secure them, be it with a family friend or otherwise who can legally take possession of it, or I will go the route of finding a firearms dealer that is willing to hold on to those firearms until the probate estate is opened, until it's decided what's going to be done with them, until we figure out where are these firearms going.
And these firearms might be a valuable asset in the probate estate, correct? So they have to be valued.
Absolutely. If there's not a will, or if it's an intestate estate where we just don't have any direction from the person who owned them, what was to be done with them, absolutely. Finding out what the value of those guns or that collection are is paramount, because you could be dealing with, I'll be honest with you, I've seen some collections in the hundreds of thousands of dollars range. Some people out there have collections that are worth millions. It makes sense to figure that out before you dispose of anything.
Now, let's say that you're married and your spouse dies and everything was fine. There was no divorce pending, nothing pending. And, the wife in that particular instance never had an FOID card. They know their spouse had guns in the home. What do they do in that instance?
Well, the first thing to do is to make sure that they don't have access to the firearms, because if they do, they run the risk of being in possession of a firearm without an FOID card, which in Illinois, it's a class 3 felony.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that they're not running into any legal issues that way. Secondly, let's say that all the guns are secure in a safe somewhere, but they still have access to them. My opinion is, in that case, they're not possessing them directly, but having the dominion and control over them Well, you could find a law enforcement official that sees that as a kind of possession by proxy, and now you're running afoul of the laws again. Again, I can't think of a case where that's happened off the top of my head, but I'm going to be paranoid and I'm going to err on the side of caution for the client, make sure they don't run into any problems. In that case, again, finding someone, be it a family member or be it a trusted family friend, or again, I'm going to go back to your local gun shop and say, even talking to somebody like that and saying, hey, my spouse passed away. I have a bunch of guns in the house. I need somebody to legally hold these until I can either legally possess them or we can dispose of them. It's always the safest way to do it.
Okay, so let's take the instance where we have that husband who passed away, the wife's in the house. She didn't know what to do about it, so she just phoned the police and said, hey, he's got guns in here. He's passed away yesterday, and I don't know what to do. Is that an appropriate? I mean, there are those instances where they don't know to call you, frankly. You know,
there are, and I've actually seen that happen as well. Unfortunately, when that happens, what will most likely occur is the police will take those firearms into custody. They will log them into their inventory. And depending on the department, I've seen it being as benign as a department taking the firearm and zip tying it to a piece of cardboard in a safe condition with an item number on it, versus other departments I've seen will actually engrave property numbers into the firearms, essentially destroying any value that may have been in that firearm. Unfortunately, contacting the police in this scenario can set off a cascade of problems, because once the police department has them, if they don't want to give them back to the estate, now the estate has to file a replevin action. So now you're not only dealing with the death of a spouse, you're not only dealing with a probate case, you now have to open up another case to try and get the guns returned to the estate. To me, we're all taught, go to the police if you have problems. They're going to help you. They're going to help in this situation and make sure that you're not breaking the law. But in doing so, it sets off a cascade of problems afterwards. To me, it's not the best way to do it, but when it happens, we do have mechanisms to get everything back, to recover. It's just time is of the essence. Contact somebody right away, because not all departments will hold things for more than 30 days.
Now, let's change the scenario again and say, younger couple, minor children at home, dad always kept guns loaded. Mom knows this and dad passes away. So mom gathers the children, gets them out of there. I mean, what duties are imposed upon mom in that instance to make sure that house is free and clear of any kind of guns?
Well, in a situation like that, we've got a couple different things going on. And as far as what legal duties are there, obviously keeping the children away from the firearms is first and foremost. There's no two ways about that. In a situation like that, the first call for me would be contact anyone who has an inkling about guns and say, what do I do? Get somebody out here to help me to make sure these things are safe, and either secure them, take them away. The reality is, and I know these situations exist, I guess what I would hope to get across to anyone listening today is, if you're in that household where there's a situation where your partner has and is a firearm user, enthusiast, whatever you want to call it, you really, if you want to provide for your children, you should learn something about them yourself to make sure that it's not just you relying on your partner saying these are safe. Learn it for yourself. Make sure that your kids aren't going to be a statistic because of yet another careless firearm accident.
Got it. And if you're going to bring somebody into the house to secure those weapons, it has to be somebody that shows you an FOID card that's current, correct?
Yeah, in a situation like that, I would only be calling somebody that I know in the family that is a firearms enthusiast, or somebody, friend of the family, somebody that comes with a recommendation. Again, I'm going to go back to the gun shop, and I know I sound like I'm harping on this, but most of the people that work there understand the gravity of this situation, and they should be able to come in and help you out. Again, I come from a different standpoint, because being a gun guy myself, I have clients that come to me with these situations. I'll sit them down and show them myself. I will log off the clock to make sure that they know here is firearm safety first and foremost, because to me, making sure nobody gets hurt accidentally with it is number one. Everything else from there we can figure out.
Correct. I understand that. Now, another question comes up is, can a state be held liable if there's illegal or unregistered firearms? Let's say that the person who, you are your long lost aunt died, fair. You're a relative and you show up at the house, you have no idea if there's weapons or anything in there. And before you know it, you find them or there's a problem. What steps should you be taking? And I mean, that's got to be a fear issue for a lot of people when they're walking into somebody maybe they don't know that well.
Yeah, that's another one where we'll break it down a little bit here, because if you have that situation where you have somebody, they're walking in, they don't know what property is in that house. A lot of times people will just come across the guns by opening a drawer or going into, a safe that they found the code for and find these things. Well, here, if it's the safe, first thing you do is you close the safe and secure it, find somebody that knows firearms to help you out. You find it in the drawer, first thing is simple. Don't touch it. If you don't know how to handle a gun, don't put your fingers on it. Plain and simple. Get out of there, find somebody to help you with that, deal with those issues first. In reality, though, a lot of times where you run into problems, and I've seen this happen, you come into a situation where, again, great aunt passes away and you're just trying to clean up the mess. And what do you find? You find a shotgun sawed off way, way short. And now you have what is technically an NFA, a National Firearms Registry Act, National Firearms Act gun, which is not legal to be had in Illinois. In a situation like that, this is why I say it's important to have somebody who knows firearms, because there's nothing you can do to make that firearm legal in this state. Unless, again, you have a federal firearms license. There's caveats, but for the most part, it's not something that an average citizen can possess. In a situation like that, again, I'm going to go back to finding somebody that has the FOID card that can legally possess these firearms is your first step. If they look at one and say, hey, wait a minute, this thing's illegal, then it really is a step. That's where the police need to be involved, because the last thing you want to do is have somebody who's trying to do you a good deed commit a felony of their own.
Right. Boy, complicated issues that are out there, and I think that it's more common than not. And, having done divorce law for over 30 years, I know what it's like for people. They, for lack of a better illustration, these are crumbs, and they pick up the carpet and they put them under the carpet, the crumbs under the carpet, thinking the issue is going to go away rather than dealing with head on. And I think that's a fair statement, but I think that what you're clearing up for everybody today is there are ways to deal with it. There is help to be had. You just have to seek that help and get the information and the procedure in place.
Absolutely. And let me just point out as kind of a last thought, if you will, the crumbs under the carpet analogy is great, because people going through divorces, people going through probates, they're dealing with lots of things, lots of emotional issues, lots of financial issues, and this becomes an annoyance almost. Well, think of it this way. It's one crumb that is under the carpet that should not be forgotten, because the more guns that get forgotten tend to find their way out into the streets, tend not to be handled in a legal manner, or just disappear, plain and simple. The more that happens, the more it feeds into the crime problems. I'm very much of the opinion that those of us out here who decide to exercise our gun rights have the responsibility to do it the right way. The people that get put into these situations that aren't, gun people like me, they unfortunately get that duty thrust upon them. I don't advocate that it's fair, but it's just a reality of what happens. So do it the right way, or right from the get-go, don't do it at all and let somebody who knows what they're doing deal with it.
That's correct. And to give another analogy, I mean, within this scope is, you might be caring for an elderly parent and you get involved in medical decision-making. And it's kind of a similar thing on one level, because you don't know what the right decision is. So you have to explore what your options are and choose the best alternative and follow the best medical practices you can. Same is true here, but you have to follow the law and you have to follow the best practices to deal with an issue.
Yes.
So it's an issue that I think we need to start addressing as compared to just putting our head under the pillow and saying, I can't deal with another thing on my plate. So if you're
Absolutely.
listening today and you have that issue, it's involved in your estate, you know, you need to get help. You need to get answers to these questions. Ryan's a great resource to get these answers because he can provide that direction for you. So Ryan, give your contact information. So if somebody's listening today knows that they're either already on that journey or about to embark on it, what do they do and how do they get their answers to questions?
Thank you. The first thing they would do is very simple. Pick up the phone and give me a call. Number at the office here is 708-279-4050. Or you can go to my website, which is rnh-law.com. On my contact page, you can submit something to me there. It comes right to my inbox, and I'll get back to you as quick as I can. But honestly, I like to be the first stop on these kinds of things so I can give you the proper direction. And when I say proper, not saying that you're going to get it wrong, but just saying that, hey, let's give you some guidance so you can do this the legal way and not run afoul of the myriad of gun laws that exist.
It's absolutely perfect. Well, we really appreciate your help today in answering these questions. And, you know, complicated, but an issue that has to be dealt with as well. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for having me on, Gwen. I appreciate it.